Star Trek has always had its fans.
And the franchise has existed for almost 60 years now. That's because it always finds a way to reinvent itself.
Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. All joking aside, today I'm gonna talk about Star Trek Enterprise. First and foremost, a quick disclaimer. I want to say that all of this is very subjective. For example, there are people that haven't liked a Star Trek show since the original series, and then there's people that love Discovery and hate the originals. And that's all fine, guys. No one cares. Keep it for Nerdrotic's comment section or something. Star Trek Enterprise is a show that I personally really like. Now, the impression that I get from most Star Trek fans is that they don't really care for it. It just kind of exists, you know? When I ask people about it, I mostly hear people say, "Oh yeah, that show. I didn't really like it except for Scott Bakula, so I didn't really follow it while it aired." So what we can take away from that is that people really like Scott Bakula, I guess. So, why do people find this show so forgettable? And why do I like it? Part 1. Prequel fever. So, the year is 2001, and Star Trek Voyager just ended in its 7th season. After years of gradually losing viewers, it is clear that Star Trek needs one of those famous reinventions I mentioned earlier. Although Voyager wasn't a bad show, it lost a lot of viewers due to time slot changes, good competition, and personally, I think some franchise fatigue was involved. So, producers came up with a genius and original idea. Let's make a prequel. Oh shit, I'm sorry. That's the wrong science fiction prequel from the same era. So, apparently fans thought the show was gonna be about Sulu, and or a Starfleet Academy show, but both ideas were not really considered at the time. Rick Berman's original idea for a first season was going to be a show that focuses on a crew building the first ever warp vessel. But they quickly decided that it would have been too alienating if the show was earthbound for an entire season. Anyway, they quickly refocused the show's direction to becoming a show about early exploration. Now it was going to focus on a pre-Federation timeline and tell us about how this utopia that we all know and love came to be. To make a more familiar show, they decided to call the ship Enterprise in an attempt to pull viewers into this unfamiliar world. It also featured a new intro. Well, some people like it. The show also didn't even use the word Star Trek in its intro for years, choosing to just put the title Enterprise, which is a pretty weird choice in my opinion. So, Star Trek Enterprise only really follows 3 big stories in its 4-season run. Number 1. In the year 2150, Captain Jonathan Archer gets command of the first ever Warp 5 vessel, called the Enterprise. Basically, it's a fast ship that can explore space. With his crew, he explores space, meets new life, and lays down the groundwork for this thing called the Federation, which is basically a union of planets.
We are all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon, what's beyond our own shores. And yet, the more I've experienced, the more I've learned that no matter how far we travel or how fast we get there, the most profound discoveries are not necessarily beyond that next star. They're within us.
Number 2. I couldn't even explain this one to you if I tried. But I'm gonna do it anyway. Future Guy, yes that's his name, whose identity is never really revealed in the show, sends lizards to fuck up time or something. And for some reason the lizards keep fucking with Captain Archer. This storyline didn't really conclude, and was later concluded in the books. That's all I really know about it. Number 3. This one was my favorite. The Xindi story arc. So at the end of season 2, Earth is attacked by a species called the Xindi, and Captain Archer goes after them to find out who they are and why they attacked Earth, but is so unprepared that he returns a changed man.
Things have changed since Enterprise left space dock. You'll spend A lot of your time boldly going into battle.
Don't you think you're being a little cynical?
Did you read my reports?
Yes, Captain, I did.
Yeah, this was a really dark season. The Good Enterprise. The show took a long time to find its footing. I have a feeling that it took like 2 or 3 whole seasons for these characters to really change and learn something, or get a decent story arc that left them different than they were before. It kind of reverted back to the Next Generations format there for a while, where no one really changed but stayed the same episode to episode. There were of course some reoccurring themes in the first seasons, like the fact that humans kind of disliked the Vulcans.
What's said in this room and out on that bridge is privileged information. I don't want every word I say being picked apart the next day by the Vulcan High Command.
My reason for being here is not espionage. My superiors simply asked me to assist you.
Your superiors don't think we can flush a toilet without one of you to assist
So
us.
it was nice to see that after 3
Trek.
seasons things start picking up and people actually start accepting the ball. Some more than others, of course. Moments when I think the show is at its best is when they explore the morality of what they're doing, and when they try to figure out things that are not yet written in stone.
And in all that time, did you ever do anything you thought was unethical?
A few moments come to mind, of course. My favorite being when they strand the ship by stealing a piece of technology that they need for their own survival.
Together an armed boarding party.
Who are we boarding, sir?
The alien ship we docked with.
I don't understand.
We need their warp coil. They won't give it to us, so we're going to have to take it.
Captain.
Get your men together.
And, of course, the episode where they try to figure out the Prime Directive.
Well, what are you suggesting? We choose? One species over the other?
All I'm saying is that we let nature make the choice.
The hell with nature. You're a doctor. You have a moral obligation to help people who are suffering.
I'm also a scientist, and I'm obligated to consider the larger issues.
I also like that humans are closer to our modern day humans. They're not as evolved as they will be in the future in terms of manners and respect, but their heart is still in the right place, of course, and that's important for Star Trek.
You're gonna disconnect this man from life support, even though he could live. Now, where's the logic in that?
Klang's culture finds honor in death. If they saw him like this, he'd be disgraced.
They're a warrior race. They dream of dying in battle. If you understood the complexities of interstellar diplomacy...
So that's your diplomatic solution, to do what they tell you? Pull the plug?
Your metaphor is crude, but accurate.
We may be crude, but we're not murderers. You're not gonna let them do this, are you?
What I also like, and I don't know if I'm alone in this, but the older technology is a win in my opinion. The fact that they don't use the transporter for human travel and it's still kind of experimental.
It's safe.
Do they indeed? Well, I certainly hope the captain doesn't plan on making us use it.
Don't worry. From what I'm told, he wouldn't even put his dog through this thing.
And the translation fails sometimes, that the ship was almost constantly falling apart in Season 3, and the fact that they had to use these pods to get to the surface always created these fun little moments that I really liked. Enterprise sadly only really started changing in Season 3 because they had to. Chapter 4. Red Alert, Reed. There were a few problems, of course. While I think the fans would have appreciated a soft reboot of sorts, like Enterprise, a fun jumping on point if you will, I think they hoped for a continuation of the timeline and not the whole prequel thing. It would have been safer if they aired the show with a more classic Star Trek show for that time, at the same time. Not only that, they kind of went back on Deep Space Nine's evolution. The whole concept of a series-long storyline went out the window in favor of the more classic structure. This prevents these characters from really growing substantially, like I said before. And sadly, they also kind of failed in that regard, because a lot of the bridge crew is sadly quite forgettable, through no fault of the actors themselves. but just a disregard for developing their characters in interesting ways. The television landscape was changing, and because of all these reasons, they already lost a lot of viewers. So sadly, even with the weird shower sex scenes and Scott Bakula, they couldn't really keep viewers hooked. That's why in season 3 they decided to make some changes, like the darker themes, the love story, and the season-long Xindi arc, to keep people hooked of course. Around season 4, they really got a foot and it was clear that they were building to the creation of the Federation, while also laying in the groundwork for Spock's conception in the future by tackling the interracial baby-making problems. Sadly, it was too late and the show got cancelled in its 4th season. What made this ending sting even worse was the horrible final episode that even Scott Bakula hated.
The episode was trying to jam 3 years of what they had hoped to do with our show into one last episode. Again, impossible to do. I had a whole Federation story to bring together and create. So we got a couple of Andorians in a room and a couple of Xindis, and we all shook hands, and that was it. The Federation was born. So it was shorthanded. I think they used that device. I wasn't as upset about it as I think Jonathan and Marina were, but again, I wasn't asked, so I went along with it. That's a kind of a lousy answer, isn't it? Anyway, it's a bad answer. The show ended, we were unhappy.
They threw old storylines out the window, killed a fan favorite character just for the sake of shocking some fans, and quickly rushed the creation of the Federation. While the concept for this final episode was not bad, it was just not a good idea for a final episode. And sadly, the only win that we got was the fact that we found out who the chef was. So, here comes my conclusion. Star Trek Enterprise just kind of exists. When it's good, it's really good, and at its worst, it's just kind of disappointing potential. This Star Trek aired when I was a kid, and me and my dad loved every episode that aired at the time. So it really has a special place in my heart. A great concept, created with lots of love, great episodes, great actors, and some amazing characters like Shran, Captain Archer, and T'Pol. It sadly just wasn't enough to really make it stand out as much as it needed to, and win the hearts of fans who lost interest back. It just kind of ended up being the odd duck that no one hated, and not a lot of people really loved. So yeah, it exists. Give it a watch. It's worth it, and maybe it even deserves more love. But I'll let you be the judge of that.